All right, guys, let's talk Nebraska Cornhuskers here for a little bit. Look, Matt Rule's been off to a really strong start. What he's done with this program just one offseason is commendable, and he is not done. This recruiting department is not resting on its laurels after a really strong 2023 campaign in terms of recruiting. They're already looking towards the future, like all smart programs do, and the Nebraska Cornhuskers scored a massive commitment that I think will be huge for them in going forward past the 2023 year and beyond.
Yeah, Nick, I think this story that you dug up is going to be really big for the Cornhuskers because they're trying to make their way to show they are one of the top teams in all of college football. They're getting back on track, and I think this is a really big pickup for them. But, Nick, I want to ask them another question today. Nebraska fans in the comments below, who is your favorite Nebraska DB of all time? A lot of good answers here. Let us know in the comments below. Who is your favorite Nebraska DB of all time? We're anxious to hear what you have to say. But, Nick, nonetheless, let's get on into it. Who have the Cornhuskers scored?
Yeah, so one of the things Matt Rule has done when he came to Nebraska is he's focused on two parts, really. He's focused on, building a strong recruiting base and the relationships in the Midwest in Nebraska. But one of the things he's also done is he's brought in kind of his Texas connections from his Baylor days. And at Baylor, Matt Rule very famously would out recruit a lot of big schools in the Big 12 and then the Pac-12 in that region as well that were going for Texas kid just because of his recruiting prowess. And he's not done. He's brought that to Nebraska. And his latest news is for the proof of that. If you want to go ahead and throw this up, Mize, this was first reported via Hayes Fawcett at On3 Sports, a great follow on Twitter. A lot of great breaking news from Fawcett. So if you're looking for great stuff, I highly recommend him on Twitter. But according to Hayes Fawcett, 4-star cornerback Mario Buford tells me he has committed to Nebraska. The 6-foot, 170-pound cornerback from DeSoto, Texas, chose the Cornhuskers over Oregon, Michigan State, and Penn State. Quoting him directly, "I'm coming, Husker Nation." All right, Maya. So this is a really big move for a couple of reasons. And really the fact of the matter is Nebraska can be competitive if they do a good job recruiting the Midwest and the area around them, right? The Iowa, Nebraska, all that region. They can do a good job in that area, Colorado as well. But to be elite, they're going to have to win places like Texas. They're going to have to go down to Louisiana. They're going to have to win some recruits in California, Georgia, Tennessee, right? They're going to have to become a national program again. And I like the fact that Matt Rule early on in his tenure in Nebraska is focused locally. And now that he did a few months of that, he's expanding his window a little bit and trying to go back to national. And the easiest path to do that, of course, is his roots and his connections to Texas. So I love the fact that Nebraska is starting to establish more of a national recruiting presence. There are obviously some rumors and connections to Dylan Raiola. That would have been a huge win. That obviously was a long shot. It didn't happen. But I love the fact that Matt Rule is still being very active in the recruiting game on a national level. Because while it is important for them to win locally, and they're doing a great job for that, winning locally puts them back in the top 25. Winning nationally puts them back in the top 10. And that's where Matt Rule wants to go. So I think this is just one of the early signs that things are trending in the right direction for Nebraska to get back to being a top 10 program once again. All right, Miles, I'll kick it over to you. What are your thoughts on this pickup from Nebraska and just everything with the program right now?
Yeah, Nick, first of all, I think this is a big pickup for Nebraska. I think this guy is going to be a heck of a player. But I have a little insight on maybe why they are able to get a guy like this. You look at defensive coordinator Tony White, one of the guys who was instrumental in bringing Buford, to Nebraska. A guy, El Paso, Texas native, maybe has his finger on the heartbeat of the Texas recruiting cycle. So he has been down there, around there. He knows the landscape. So I think this might be one of the helping hands to help Nebraska get out of Nebraska and get into the more elite level talent pools of all of the United States. But Nick, there's some other really interesting facts about this guy that I think people will find interesting. One, he ran track and field, was very good. He ran a 23.8 second 200 and he long jumped 20.45 feet as a freshman. Very, very impressive. And that's not all that was impressive as a freshman, Nick. He was also invited to the Freshman FBU All-American Bowl. And you might look at me and say, Mize, what does that even mean? We've never heard of this. And
Mize, what does that even mean? I've never heard of that.
Well, I haven't heard of it either. So I did a little bit of research, and you'd think, okay, it's probably one of these handful of tons of things all around the country any freshman or anyone can go to. But no, that's not the case, Nick. There's really been some high-level talent coming to these things. You think of guys like, Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence, Christian McCaffrey, Sony Michel. There's been a lot of big names to roll through the FBU Freshman All-American Bowl. So I think that Buford getting a call up here shows that in high school early on, he was targeted as a really top-level talent. Now he's coming over to Nebraska as a 4-star, a really, really talented player as well. 5'11, 165 pounds, can put on a little bit of weight in college, maybe grow a tiny, tiny bit, but he's got speed. He's got the ability to jump really high, snatch those balls right out of the air. So he's got a lot of tools here, and I think we're looking at a guy who could potentially be an under the radar, really big signing for the Cornhuskers.